This is probably a pretty obvious statement, but I think it's safe to say that Disney's Snow White remake is going to be the bigger movie opening of this weekend. But I've had zero desire to see that, and so I've been pushing it off as long as I can. So here we are, reviewing Ash. This is an R-rated psychedelic sci-fi horror film directed by Flying Lotus, who I believe has one other film to his name. I have not seen it, so this is my introduction to his work. It's nice and short at a crisp 90-minute runtime, and the film also has a very bare-bones plot. A woman, played by Eiza Gonzalez, wakes up on a foreign planet. All of her crewmates appear to have died. She has no memory of what went down and spends a majority of the film piecing together the events that unfolded when her ship arrived. From the trailer, I could sort of tell that this was going to be the type of movie that finds a very niche audience, but I think there is an audience for it out there because it has a lot of elements of sci-fi films from the 80s, exploitation flicks, and the amount of gore that it has, and because a large portion of the story is dedicated to our main character learning what happened to her crew, it is told in a non-linear format with many dream sequences, flashbacks, a lot of which are shown to us in a very hypnotic, almost dreamlike fashion. There's an insane amount of vivid imagery in this film. I love the color palette. Flying Lotus has a great eye. Not only did I find some of the cinematography and just shot compositions when our lead character is out walking on the ground of this planet and looking up into outer space, but I was also quite impressed with what he could do when operating the camera. There is one specific long take and overhead shot that tracks our lead character as she walks through her ship. And I thought it was really cool the way this movie is able to feel dynamic, yet also very grounded in a small-scale, low-budget environment. Although there is some CGI being used for a few sequences that simply couldn't be achieved through practical effects, I think there was an effort to use practical whenever they could. And one of the most important things when you're creating a sci-fi world is that you need to make the world feel real. Maybe not feasible in our specific time period, but if you're going to give us futuristic tech and space travel, you have to provide context not only through exposition or, the story, but also visually. And the ship in this movie feels like a lived-in space. It has creaks, it's dirty, it's not so sterile, it feels like it could really exist sometime in the future. All of the beeping and alarms, it fits together nicely. Eiza Gonzalez is great too. I've been a fan of hers for a while, and this is honestly some of her best work. There's a couple of dramatic scenes that are quite good, even if I think the characters are a bit thin, and we'll talk about that in a second. Actually, let's talk about it right now, because Aaron Paul is in this movie too. His character appears a good 45 minutes into it. Before that, it's kind of just her waking up and exploring her environment. Very minimalistic, not much dialogue. Aaron Paul's character was a disappointment to me because he's such a capable actor, and I do feel that he was kind of wasted on a very one-note person. There could have been such an interesting dynamic between the two characters because she has no memory of what went down. He shows up out of the blue and claims to be there to rescue her, so there's this whole element of whether or not she can trust him. The movie does not play with that as much as I would have liked it to. But ultimately, I think the biggest problem here is that when you make a script that is 2 pages worth of content, it's difficult to fill the runtime of a feature-length film. I easily could see this being a superb 30-minute short. But ultimately, when it's stretched to an hour and a half, there are points where it drags. Most notably, those first 45 minutes that I was talking about, in which there's very little dialogue, very little story progression. Most of that first chunk is occupied by Eiza Gonzalez's character, exploring the confines of her ship's wreckage and uncovering a little bit of what went down. Ash is also one of those movies that takes a dramatic shift as it moves along. Maybe not too dramatic from what I was expecting, but it incorporates a lot more body horror, gore, and it started to feel more like an exploitation film the longer that it went on. And I'm not opposed to that, but I have to point out that it does take inspiration from a lot of different movies, whether we're talking about Alien, The Thing, Event Horizon, Prometheus. All 4 of those have distinct moments in the film that brought them to my mind. I mentioned this before, I do think it is going to find a very select audience, so if this isn't the type of thing that looks intriguing to you, you're probably not going to like it. For me, it is an experience that I enjoyed, even though it is more about the ambience, the sound design paired with these insane hypnotic visuals. Flaws and all, you do feel like you're being transported to another world for 90 minutes, and that's a cool thing to experience. However, with how thinly written it is, I do keep teetering between giving this a thumbs up and a thumbs down. It's not great, and it certainly won't leave you with any existential questions to linger on, but if you're looking for a theatrical experience that leaves you feeling like you just snorted some bath salts, I think this is the movie for you. I think Ash ever so slightly squeezes into the 3-star category, so that is the score that I'm going to give it. The film itself is nice and short, and so I wanted to keep my review nice and short. Not that there's too much to dissect anyways, and I don't want to spoil some of the more fun elements that happen towards the end. So if this is a movie that looks interesting to you, I would go out and support it. It's a Shudder original. I want to see more movies like this attempted, even if they aren't perfect, even if they have some serious flaws. And if you do manage to catch it, be sure to let me know down in the comments what you think of it. As always, I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.